the HomeTech Podcast for Friday, May 24th. From Sarasota, Florida, I'm Seth Johnson.
From Reynoldsburg, Ohio, I'm TJ Huddleston.
And from Pickering, Ontario, I'm Gavin Campbell.
And welcome to the HomeTech Podcast all about home automation, home technology, soil moisture sensors, maybe? I don't know. Ooh. Let's talk about that. Let's get that out of the way.
Out of the way?
Are those Matter compatible?
There's just so much news tonight.
It's going to be a long show, so, get comfortable, get some snacks, and just enjoy it.
Make a cuppa, as they say.
All right. Soil moisture sensor. This is a new one.
Moisture.
Where did this come from? The hub? I thought somebody posted this in the hub.
So David sent me this in the hub, because we're constantly going back and forth about our lawns. He's a lawn nut more than I am, actually. And I was a big fan of the EcoWit WH51 soil moisture sensors because they worked really well. But those are the ones, if you've been following us this long, they would stick out of the ground, and then you'd see these little green things that had a little flashing light on them, which I covered up with a sticker. But, I went through the season stepping on a few, broke a few. I have a few backups still. But then he pointed out a new version of it that EcoWit released called the WH51L. And this one is actually the sensor you bury in the ground. Then it has a 1 meter long cable that you can run to the side, and then you can mount the little transmitter box on like a wall or something. So now you can mow your lawn. You can, not worry about stepping on it, all sorts of things. These look great. I'm going to be ordering a few once they're available. I can't find them, but yeah, they overcome the whole sticking out of the ground thing pretty nicely. I wish the cable was a little longer. But you know what? If I get one, I'm going to cut that cable and see what wires are in there and see if I can maybe extend it so I can get, more into the lawn and see if that works. But yep, I love them.
It says these are about $50 US a piece.
Oh, man.
And it looks like you would be, they're $50. And supposedly they'll come out May 27th, so not too much longer. And it looks like from the picture, you obviously won't know until you get it, Gavin, but it looks like you can actually just replace the lead. And so maybe you can actually extend it or buy extensions or something at some point.
That would be awesome.
Because, whenever you're doing this, you want to make sure it's waterproof, obviously. And there's not a lot of good ways to do that and keep it short or keep it small if you're going to extend it. So hopefully they just sell extension cables or something.
Well, I will be buying a few and reporting back later in the season when I start opening up all my, irrigation system and stuff like that, because we're now getting into the summertime here.
Yeah, I love EcoWit. They're great. I'm glad you turned me on to them.
Yeah.
You're going to get me caught into this one. Although I'm not mowing my grass. I'm refusing to until they're done working on the construction stuff out front. I think they're done, but I'm still not mowing my lawn. So it's like really tall in places right now. I've had quite a bit of rain, and it's not green everywhere, but it's growing.
I think that's half the battle, right?
Yeah.
Probably all that iguana poop.
Probably. I don't know what's wrong with it. There's like stretches of the grass. My wife's like, why don't you turn the water on? And I'm like, well, it does water in those sections. It's just still brown. I don't know why. Maybe I need to get some of these soil motions and moisture. Since I'm not mowing the lawn, I may as well just pick some of these up and plug them in and see what it tells me.
There you go.
Yeah.
Bam, sold. I'm getting you hooked now. Yep. Order 10.
Yeah.
Send us a couple.
Crazy. All right. Well, I'll give it a try. I've been staring at this stuff for a while, so we'll see.
You'll need a little gateway too. So, the easiest way is you get the little gateway, but the gateway's cheap. You can get the gateway for like $30 or something like that, right? And that just ties into Home Assistant. And of all the tests, that has been one of the best ways to get the signal in, because it just picks up the signal so much better than everything else I've done.
What gateway is that? Console?
No. Just it's a little gray box with an antenna on it.
LAN WAN gateway, I think is what it is. Yep. I see $31 or $29, one of the two.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, not bad. Maybe I'll do something like that. I did the old turn on the thing with the cups for your sprinkler to test the other day, and it was mostly even. So I know it's getting water in those sections. It's just not, the grass isn't turning green. I think the grass is dead there for whatever reason. So, oh well.
Throw down a little extra seed, throw down some soil and turn on your sprinkler and just let it go.
All right. Well, we got a big show tonight. Let's see. We've got Daniel Moneta from the Matter Working Group on tonight. We're going to have an interview with him, sit down and chat a little bit about all the things going on in Matter now that they've got 1.3 coming out. So that's a little teaser. But we've got a bunch of HomeTech headlines. So what do you guys say we jump into those?
Let's do it.
First up, a couple of cool updates. ADT, new ADT Plus home security system, is going to integrate the Google Nest camera facial recognition feature, and it enables a thing they're calling Trusted Neighbor, a feature that grants temporary access to trusted individuals when you're away. The system includes new hardware and software and can automatically disarm using facial recognition to allow somebody that you have registered, I guess, on the camera there into your house while you're gone. That's not a bad idea. No keys, no like PIN code number things to pop in and mess up on because the locks are hard to push buttons in. I don't know. That's not a bad idea.
A pretty cool idea. You could kind of do something like this if you had a home automation system today with like blue iris and stuff. But I always found facial
Oh, this is making it easy though, Gavin. This is plug and play.
But how reliable is the facial?
What is blue iris? I've never heard of that.
You guys, you noobs. How reliable is facial recognition though? Because I see it pick up a lot of things wrong all the time, or it doesn't recognize somebody or something like that. But, it's a cool feature. I'd rather just have something like a code that I can give my neighbor and let them in the house with a smart door lock.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to walk up at the wrong time and then like, oh, there's my neighbors in my house.
Yeah.
Digging in the fridge, that kind of thing. So they're hungry.
Stop looking at my fridge.
Get there. Shoo. All right. A new product from Aquara, a new smart outlet. They've got a wall outlet H2. It's a smart outlet for European markets starting at €49. This outlet can monitor real-time power usage and trigger automations based on that, and activates nighttime scene. Like it can detect when your phone charging exceeds 10 watts. It operates on Zigbee 3.0 and can integrate with various smart home platforms. Nice little product coming out. I suppose let's see, it says will be available in select markets, select countries, European countries, May 30th.
Yep.
I suspect we'll see this over here eventually, right?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully a new design at least,
Well, yeah, you can't use the same
exactly. And you know what? Usually I just don't care about the European news. But ever since we started doing this sticker call out, like seeing how many European people listen to the show, I love you all. And I'm going to start gathering more European news because I feel your pain when it comes to trying to get, products and stuff like that. So this is great. Aquara has, really stepped it up recently. Power monitoring is a great thing, especially in Europe where I think power is really expensive over there.
Yep.
So, like knowing how much power things are drawing is going to be very valuable. You'll probably make money back just from this, than we would over here. But that's great to see Aquara, branching out and coming out with some new stuff for you guys.
Yeah. It's got little features in it that here's one example. It can turn off the jacks as soon as the power dips below a user-defined load of 0 watts to 2 watts for over 30 minutes. So if you got something in there, that's one of those little, what do they call them? Vampire circuits or something? Ghost circuits?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Where it just kind of leeches the power. It's called leech circuits. It leaches the power off, your house. It's just like running a charger that's no longer charging the battery. Well, it can just kick off. It's a great idea. Good job, Aquara.
Yeah.
More stuff like this. Xiaomi also is revealing. Now this is cool. It's the Xiaomi People's Presence Sensor. I'm sure it's an interesting name to it. It's now this is kind of like the Aquara sensor, right? But this one is a battery operated one, and it looks adorable. It absolutely, it's a little mushroom looking thing that you can sit on your countertop, and it can detect human presence when individuals are stationary, as long as there is consistent lighting, it says. That's weird. And it offers a wide detection angle of 130 degrees. So I'm liking this. This is pretty cool. Works on a CR2450 button battery, lasting up to 3 years. Count me in.
This is way more battery life than I thought, honestly. I would be fine with 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, I'm fine with 1 year, and it's not actually a countertop one. I think that's just the picture because the other pictures show it wall mounted and stuff, right? And again, it's another step towards what I really want is a battery powered millimeter wave sensor. So they're coming out. They call it, what do they call it? Low power millimeter wave radar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of time before we get there where battery powered, really good, millimeter wave sensors. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
This says it's a quote, low power millimeter wave radar.
Yeah.
6 meter range, static detection range of 4 meters. And yeah, I think you're right. Cause it has a breakdown with some, Chinese writing on it that I can't read. but it's pointing to the sensors that are facing out of what looked to be the top part of that round section. And yeah, I think you're right. That's going to have to be,
Yes.
that's less. I really liked it the way it looked just sitting there. I could set that on the end table or something. No one would know it was there, but it would detect, people in the room. Oh, that would be great. But no, it's got to be wall mounted.
The only other thing I saw about this, and they don't mention this at all, and it was somebody pointed it out, that it may be Bluetooth only, right? It's not Zigbee or anything that I would expect from them, but it may just be Bluetooth only. So when it comes out, I'm sure we'll get the reviews, and I'll probably grab one if I can, and see how well it works.
Yeah, pulling a switch box, just go on Bluetooth for the battery life, and then just send it right to the hub, and where they'll do everything.
Yep, solves the problem. All right. Well, speaking of problems, Comcast, cable TV company here in the States, is launching a new streaming bundle called Stream Saver that includes Peacock, Apple TV Plus, Netflix, for subscribers of its cable TV or broadband services. The bundle aims to offer these services at a reduced price compared to individual subscriptions, and Comcast is hoping that this bundling strategy will help retain subscribers and compete in the streaming market. It's like they're redoing cable again, guys. Like, why? Why are they?
It was expected. It was expected. But this is nothing. Honestly, to me, this is nothing new because I remember on my Rogers bill, I would always see at the bottom of the bill or offers, they would say, you get this package and we'll include Netflix and Disney and whatever. They were already bundling it in to the cable package, which was really weird too, right? So, I think we expected this at some point.
Yeah, it says that they've lost 487,000 cable TV subscribers in the first quarter of 2024, with broadband subscriber base also decreasing. Wonder where they're going. Maybe they can increase, I don't know, their customer service or the speed of their internet, where they don't have to find alternatives. I don't know. Something crazy like that, Comcast. Maybe you can do that. Peacock also has incurred significant losses, so people are kind of watching that occasionally and then not watching it anymore. So yeah, they're having problems. And so the idea is just to bundle in all of these channels together and sell it under one package. I'm using air quotes for all this because it's basically just cable TV. That's what the innovation is. They've innovated cable TV to include streaming services. Better product, maybe. Just an idea. Comcast. Just an idea. Throwing it out there.
Why would you want that? Yeah, Comcast is the only company I dislike more than Spectrum. So
yeah, they're pretty bad.
And Breezeline
and Sonos. I will get to that though. Google launches a new Home API here, access for its Google Home platform. This is actually cool. It allows developers to create smart solutions for users within the apps by tapping into Google's automation engine. These new Home APIs support Matter and works with Google Home devices, enabling developers to integrate Google Home devices and automations back into their apps for iOS and Android. This is actually pretty cool. So partners that are working with Google Home can, now that they have these APIs, they can, like, there's another story from Eve. It talks about their upcoming Android app that we've been hearing about this for a while. Like, Eve's making an Android app, but it's been slow pace. Now they're saying, oh, it's on turbocharged. Now that we have these APIs, we can get right in there and port our app over, the Eve app, right over to Google Home, just like we have over on iOS. So I don't know. I think this is great. The more APIs, the better. I am pro API, not pro cable company. No, not that, but pro API.
Yeah, I'm pro cable. API too. Yeah, APIs are good. No, honestly, this is really cool just because compatibility within the smart home system is the biggest hurdle for most of these devices. And you can buy a really cool, smart outlet or a light switch or whatever it is now. But if it doesn't work with other stuff, then it doesn't matter, and there's no point in having it. You could just buy anything else. And so somebody leveraging this to bring their product, just like Eve is, to a lot of new users. I mean, that's what you want. You want to be able to see this access. So this is really cool for Google to do. Let's just hope it stays around.
Pending a public release of the new Google Home API is coming up this fall, but we'll see. As long as they don't kill it, like you said.
Yeah, Google.
All right, let's talk about who matters this week. Tato. I don't know how you say it. Tato, you say I say
Tato.
Tadu. All right, there we go.
That sounds fun,
Tadu has introduced the Tadu X smart heating range that integrates with Matter smart home protocol and operates on a thread mesh network. System includes a thermostat X, the smart radiator thermostat X, and the wireless temperature sensor X. I don't know why they're going to put X's on the end of these things. I'm going to just pretend everything has an X on it in the rest of the story. The heat pump optimizer, and they have an optional bridge, which is also called a Bridge X. There you go, whatever. It serves as a thread border router to connect everything together. So they've got a nice little platform here, full Matter platform that they're launching, and it's compatible with all the ones we just talked about: Google Home, Amazon, Apple Home, all those assistants, Home Assistant, I guess too, right? Matter. So not so bad. Good job to do.
This is great. I love seeing new Matter products. It's just, I love seeing the growth.
They don't look bad either.
Yeah. And I love seeing the growth. I love seeing the expansion, like Matter is now taking off a lot faster. I'm just happy. It matters, and knowing that Daniel listens to the show, now I feel like he really listens to the show,
Can't say anything bad about Matter.
Can't say nothing bad about Matter, but
Yeah.
Daniel, get your pen and pad out right now. I'm going to make a little suggestion. Can you push the various platforms to give us something like bindings or associations? Like let them, that will be my. When that comes, I'll be really switching things over to Matter once I get some of that, So I'm just throwing that out there. I know he's listening. He's probably writing it down right now. He's going to be like, I'll make a few calls.
You're such an early adopter, Gavin.
I'm an influencer. I'm influencing Matter changes.
It's on the it's living on the edge.
Yeah.
Pretty good prices here. Thermostat bridge kit, basically, to get you started. €199. The smart thermostat's €134. Smart radio. Why do I keep saying radio? Radiator thermostat with the bridge starter kit, $159. Just the radiator thermostat, $99. And if you want a Quattro pack, which I'm guessing is 4, that is €369. Wireless temperature sensor, €99. That's just quite a bit. And then a heat pump optimizer, $249. And the bridge by itself, €69. So not bad. It's a whole ecosystem.
So €100, what? $110, I think.
Actually, so I just did the Canadian conversion. How much is like an Ecobee thermostat up there, Gavin? Like the premium?
Oh, well, the premium Ecobee, I got to take out a loan for.
Well, that was a surprise. And they're a Canadian company too, so that's even worse.
Yeah, but they're owned by an American company now.
Americans ruin everything.
Jeez, where do I even buy it from?
Because this thermostat is €199. The one we were just talking about, the To Do, it's $294 Canadian. So I'm interested in how that stacks up against other thermostats up there.
I think we've learned that Canada just is like there's a premium markup to live there.
The premium, okay, so the premium smart thermostat premium with smart sensor and air quality monitor, blah blah blah, $329.
Oh, well, yeah. That's basically the similar cost as Ecobee premium for you then.
Or the enhanced is $249, or you can get the light with $198 for $198.
All right.
Canada taxes. It's like you may as well just live in Hawaii.
Do you guys feel my pain here? Like,
I don't. Everything's so cheap, and I walk outside, oil just flowing from my yard, and
you don't want me to get into my 3D printer rant right now. Like, wait, let's save that for the projects. I'll start off the rant section with my 3D printer rant first, and then we'll go from there.
Oh, wait, they have a whole rant section.
We're getting canceled after mine, so they might as well hear what you have to say.
All right. Well, Home Assistant matters this week. There is a new Matter update on Home Assistant. They are up to Matter version 1.3. So, what? Probably a first hub to integrate with 1.3.
It was
right?
first really fast, actually. Yeah, it was like almost like I just heard about 1.3, and then I got an update to my Home Assistant with 1.3. Right, and I know they're very popular with Matter, and a lot of people are using them to test Matter products on. So that's probably why Home Assistant will always be on the latest version of Matter.
Yeah, it looks like it's in beta too. So maybe
it's always in beta. Like Home Assistant is beta. I'll just tell you.
There you go. Well, all right. Well, as long as it's in beta, they don't have to worry about breaking things at all. So there you go. You've been warned. All right. Well, I mean, there are rant sections here. I don't know if you want to talk about ranting about your 3D printer before we let TJ just take over the show.
This is a quick one, but just so you guys feel my pain, ordered my 3D printer in February. Like I was waiting for all the parts to become available, and then they finally shipped it. Took about a week to get here, and they shipped it via FedEx. But yeah, before FedEx would deliver it to me, they're like, "Oh no, you owe us some money. You owe us duties. You owe us taxes." So basically, whatever I paid for the printer, I had to pay another $400 just for them to drop it off at my door for
cow.
me. And that's how we get hurt up here when it comes to duties and taxes and stuff like that. Like, it was another $400. And, at that point, I've waited so long. The printer's in the city. I had to pay it. It's like, what option do I have? Like, I wish they told us before I ordered this that, but nope, they don't care wherever it's coming from. It's just when the Canada gets at their border, they're like, well, let's get some money from this Gavin guy.
That's crazy. I would have driven it up to you for $400, Gavin. I would have hand delivered it.
Just that much.
On that note, I just want to remind our listeners about our Patreon. If you go to HomeTech. Okay, that's the end of my rant. I'm done. I'm
gotta get those filament funds in.
I feel better now. This saves
that's
place.
Crazy.
It is.
That is nuts.
Americans would literally burn every building down if we had to do that.
Yeah. Instead, we just go broke paying for our healthcare.
We don't care about healthcare, but we can. If I couldn't get my cheap stuff from China, there would be hell in the streets.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, off to you, TJ.
All right. Well, Sonos has finally released their Ace wireless over-the-ear active noise-canceling headphones priced at $449, or what do we discover? 500 and something Canadian?
$599 Canadian. Yeah, I don't even know if that includes duties and taxes and stuff. So
probably not.
Don't find out.
From a store that charges you a lot more
Not gonna find out anyway.
It's not worth it.
It competes, clearly competing with Apple and Bose high-end headphones. The headphones offer all-day comfort with slim design, memory foam, vegan leather, and a stainless steel construction. They come with a travel case made from 75 plastic bottles and have wireless connectivity with Bluetooth 5.4. Custom designed 40 millimeter dynamic drivers to support spatial audio. TJ, since you're getting these, what are you excited about?
Go get them.
Ooh, I have some bad news. I'm not getting these.
Come on.
They look basically just like I thought they would look, and kind of what the leaks were showing.
Mm-hmm.
I think The Verge basically has an insider at this point. I think it's just Patrick Spence. But they look like the leaks. They look like similar to AirPods and Bose. I mean, there's nothing remarkable about the design itself. I think it has 3.5 millimeter and USB-C, or does it just have USB-C to 3.5? I don't even know. It's got some ports though, so you don't have to just use it with Bluetooth. But honestly, the thing that I don't understand, these are Bluetooth only.
Mm-hmm. No Wi-Fi.
So they have Wi-Fi only if you're going to use them with cinema mode. And the only Sonos product these work with...
Oh, I can use my play bar, right?
No. Well, you definitely can't use your play bar. Come on, upgrade.
Okay.
You could only use your Sonos Arc, Seth. So if you have a $900 sound bar, you could pair these headphones to that, and that's it. Nothing else. You can't pair it to the Beam 2, the Ray, Sonos Ones, anything else. Which I don't understand. I thought they would just be like a separate zone. They would just be like a Sonos speaker in your ear. Like that seems like the most common sense solution for Sonos, which makes whole house audio products. But
well, it's cool. Like I have my Android phone, and I'll surely be able to use that with my Android phone, right?
Oh, well, actually, no, Seth. It's not compatible with Android at all right now. So you can't, if you have Android, which Sonos has always snubbed Android. So I mean, that's not really an option. Yeah. But yeah, it's just like, it's such a weird product because it's like, well, okay, so they're Bluetooth only, and they only work with the Sonos Arc. Like, you've just cut down your market drastically on these, and like there wasn't going to be, like, I'm sure they'll sell like tens, if not hundreds of thousands of these, just because that's what smart home products do and stuff.
No,
I'm assuming like tens of thousands. I don't know, like hundreds of thousands, I think is pushing it. But yeah, it's so weird. And they've got like a 30-hour battery life with Bluetooth. And so the only thing I can think of is that the Wi-Fi just drained the battery too much. But these are supposed to be worn at home, right? And if I'm wearing them when I'm watching TV or whatever else, like I don't need them to last 30 hours. They could last like 15 hours. And, that could be like 2 long days or, 5 shorter days over the span of a week. So I don't know. The battery thing doesn't seem to be that big of an issue. It's kind of weird. It's just, this is a total miss, I think. I mean, and it wasn't, a lot of people were talking crap about it anyway. And now it's like, oh, well, kind of deserved that one, didn't you, Sonos?
At least they didn't break their app to release this on early.
Yeah. That still isn't working right.
And not to mention, like the AirPod, what are the AirPod Max? Those are the big ones that these would compete with. They're more expensive, but they're on sale right now for what?
$499.
$499, which means that the next version of those are coming out right any day. Like Apple stuff doesn't go on sale anytime soon until it's upgrade time. So, man, these are going to have since they don't do anything more than regular Bluetooth I don't see them selling these for a while. I don't know.
Well, and it's like, why wouldn't you just buy? I mean, so Sonos already isn't known for having good Bluetooth products.
Exactly.
So you can look at the Roam, and the Roam everybody likes the Roam because it's small and portable and all that stuff. Nobody likes the price because it is expensive. But mostly everybody complains about the Bluetooth issues that they have in the speaker. And if you look at the Sonos subreddit or the forums or whatever, everybody's complaining about the Sonos Roam Bluetooth. And the fact that these are Bluetooth only is like, oof, I don't know, Sonos. I don't think nobody wants these. But ironically, they did release the Sonos Roam 2 today as well. So they finally fixed the Sonos Roam 1 by just introducing a new one.
Yeah, I'd have to trust their Bluetooth a little bit better from all the complaints I heard about that.
Yeah.
To even consider these. And then why would I buy these if like there are other more established companies? I don't know, Bose, Sony.
The AirPod Max. Just spend $50 more. I mean,
just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, anything else? Because I mean, the advantage of the Sonos is that it would just act as a separate zone.
Mm-hmm.
But now that they're just Bluetooth speakers, you can literally just buy any Bluetooth or Bluetooth headphones. You could literally just buy Bluetooth headphones. Like, there's not a lot of reasons to buy these unless you're looking for the cinema mode, which is, I guess, the only selling point.
Yeah. When you were going over your Wi-Fi conspiracy theories, I never honestly thought that was a thing that was going to happen. But what I did think they would do, and they could do, and I don't know why they can't do it, and maybe it's just like a lawyer thing they have to work out with their lawyers people, is like, why can't you treat the headphones exactly like you're talking about? Pair them with a phone, pair them with a Bluetooth. Heck, pair them with the Bluetooth that probably exists on the players too. They probably have Bluetooth radios on most of the players now.
The newer ones, at least, yes.
Okay, so pair them with that, and then use that output, like control that output through the amp into the headphones as like another zone. Like, so what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, use the app as the zone for your headphones. You're on the Wi-Fi, you're on home. You can tell when you're close to your Sonos system. Why can't they do that? It seems like a no-brainer, and that would be the exact functionality that you're asking for. Treat these as a separate zone. Or you can flip them. Fine. They are regular old Bluetooth headphones. Who cares? What they have that nothing else has, like the Apple product does, they have the ability to show up in the Sonos app and be checked off as a zone. Nothing else has that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I enjoy is I was over on the dealer forums yesterday, and they were all like, "Oh, Sonos is gonna release this multi-channel rack mount amplifier that we've been dreaming of for years." And it's like, nope, not gonna happen.
No, stop it, guys.
So I was poking fun. There was actually a Reddit post here that this guy wrote. He was a dealer for 10 years, platinum dealer for 10 years, because you got to mention he's a platinum dealer. He's been asking for an outdoor rated soundbar for over 10 years, and he knows hundreds of dealers who want the same thing. He knows 0 people that have asked for headphones. I know at least one person that's asked for a headphone. A soundbar sounds like a great idea outside, but
yeah.
I want TJ to buy the headphones, run them through their paces, answer all our questions, and you can return them after.
Just rent them.
Yeah, I probably will, honestly.
Yeah, do it. I have so many questions. Yep, I have so many questions.
Yeah, one thing I think is kind of funny about this is you guys know Sonos Radio, their free and paid tier of music service that they have.
Oh, it'd be perfect for my headphones.
Oh, well, guess what, Seth? You can't actually listen to Sonos Radio with these headphones because you can't do that. I guess hypothetically, if you were to play it on the Sonos Arc, you could do that, but why would you do that? So you can't even use these with Sonos' own radio streaming service.
considering all I have is beams in my house too, they don't have support yet for the beam, so this won't work for me either. So
just buy it; it'll come
eventually.
on,
TJ, go get it. No, I'll leave it up to you. You got to answer all my questions, CJ. Just take one for the team.
Take. I mean, you can buy a pair too for the team if you want. Try them out.
Good, send me some of that Patreon money. I got it right up.
Slide it over. We'll pay you in stickers. What are you talking about? Oh man. Well, what a mess of a month for Sonos. First, a completely botched app update that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I heard it through the wind, through the birds. It's like the people there, we were like, hey, we tried to warn management that this isn't ready, and they didn't listen. There you go.
Patrick Spence, if you're listening, retire, resign, whatever. You're not right.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the. Well, with Sonos, I am seeing it being run as the public company that it is, right? So it is like it's there to make the money line move, right? And if the money line doesn't move, they have to figure out inventive ways to do it, and whether that's like random new products that no one ever wanted, or interesting things that make investors go, oh, well, maybe they're doing something over there. But like initially, like Sonos was like the whole goal behind it was to bring like the best home house audio system like in place. Like they were like the best experience, good product, like quality product that lasts forever. I just don't see that anymore. I just don't see that as part of the company. They had this great reputation, and just I don't know. The product's still good. It's still good. Hasn't really been updated very long. I mean, I guess it has been if they deleted SonosNet, right? So they can't use that anymore.
Yeah, it's just there's a ton of questionable things going on, and like I understand the chasing the money stuff, but like Sonos has always been known as a premium brand, and it's just when you do stuff like the app update and the S1, S2, and the recycling program and all this stuff that just adds up over the years, you're not a premium brand anymore.
Yeah,
and it's just like. That's why people bought you, is because you are a premium brand. And once you ditch that, it's like, well, okay, so these other companies do whole house audio now, right? And so if you're in the Apple
for
ecosystem,
a fraction of the price, mind you, a fraction of the price. It's not as good, but it's a fraction of the price.
Yeah, and most people are not like, I go into so many people's houses. I can tell you right now, guys, most people do not care about cinema quality stuff.
No,
like there's select people out there that want really good quality audio, but most people are just going to use the TV speakers built into their TV. Like they're never going to add anything else. And whenever they do, it's going to be drastically better than what's in the TV, because whatever's in the TV now is just awful.
Mm-hmm.
And so like your market is already super small. And so you're destroying it. Sonos brand is getting destroyed. And it's just so weird because it's over the silliest of things.
Well, at least we have a long roadmap ahead of us to look into. According to, the Wall Street Journal, they are looking into getting into the TV set-top box market, in-ear headphones that will closely rival Apple AirPods, and a large party speaker. I don't know. That sounds good.
Yeah, sounds
always
right.
want to. It's got to have those. It's got to be like the ones you buy from Costco though, with the LEDs around the woofer.
Like and the stand and everything. Like it's like 6 foot tall.
No, I mean you can get them. They're like an amp and everything all in one. It's like a Bluetooth connected thing, and it's got like two speakers, two woofers, maybe I don't know, 8 to 10 inches, and they have like these RGB lights that are around them that just you can't turn off because you need them for your quinceañera. So yeah, I think it has to look like that, Sonos. You have to do that. No RGB lights. Done.
Yeah.
In the interview, Spence called the television market, quote, a very interesting for the long term, and said he's, quote, open to driving further innovation in headphones. There we go.
Yeah, see, the only thing with a set-top box that makes sense would be like synchronized video. But after everything that's been happening, I don't think Sonos is going to be able to deliver that at all. So
I don't even think it's on their radar. I mean, it makes sense to me and you because we know that if you play a streaming channel on your set-top box, you go to the next streaming channel, you would try to play the same thing at the same time in the other room. Even if it's live TV, it's not going to be delivered at the same time to those two boxes.
What do you think? Which market segment do you think is bigger? People that want synchronized video across multiple TVs, or people that want to use really expensive headphones with their really expensive soundbar?
Oh man. It's got to be about the same 5 people, I think. Well, Sonos, There were people saying it's been enshittified. I don't know if it fully has been enshittified. I still think they make quality product. Like, I'm not gonna be completely down. I do like the app update. I see where they're going. They just should have waited a month.
Yeah, the UI is good.
Yeah.
That's what stinks the most. Is like I really like the UI for the new app.
Yeah. In a month or so, it'll be better. And then maybe after that, it'll be even better. And then maybe sometime later in the future, Android will work with the headphones that they released.
Nah, Android users always get screwed.
It's ridiculous. All right. Well, TJ, you done ranting? Are you got to go buy
Yeah,
these?
I'm done.
You're gonna go buy these.
You guys understand where I'm coming from, so we could. I'll buy them, but I'm returning them.
Oh, we've been hearing about it all day, so it's like.
Well, the worst thing too is when the news actually came out, I was actually working. Like, I know Gavin doesn't work because he's in IT or whatever, but I was up in an attic or something when the news came out, and I was like, no, this is the worst time for this news to come out.
You're trying to buy them, and the website's crashing. It's like, I want to see the specs.
And what's hilarious is I told Nicole about them. I was like, oh my gosh, they finally released the headphones. She's like, what about them? And I told her, and she was like, that's so stupid. And I was like, man, you guys missed out on 2 customers. We were the only 2 customers.
You could have bought the combo.
I know, you could have bought the dual pack.
Yeah, I woke up from my nap because I was working IT, and I saw the news, and I was all excited until I started, seeing everybody and what they were complaining about. And at that point, I felt like going back to my nap, but I was already awake,
already riled up. I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
To be fair, TJ, it is a state mandated nap that he has to take because
that makes
all
sense.
the taxes have to go to something.
We're paying for your health insurance. You better be healthy, Nick.
You know what? When I was reading all these bad Reddit posts, though, I was wondering how many of these were alternate logins for TJ.
How many usernames
I kept
do you have?
reading them in TJ voice, right? And I kept thinking he could have written this.
Nah, I don't think I have an active Reddit account right now, so it's not me. It's not me on Reddit, at least.
You've been banned too many times.
Good luck to Sonos. I mean, genuinely, like,
Good job with your shitifications.
I don't understand this. I don't understand how it was the most requested product. I didn't even think this was on anyone's radar until you mentioned it, towards the end of last year. But evidently it's been a theory amongst people who won't be named, and it was their most requested product of all time. There we go. Moving on, all the links and topics we discussed tonight can be found over in our show notes over at HomeTech.fm/483. All right, pick of the week. I was going down a deep rabbit hole of things and ran across this adorable video of the Cinco MIDI organizer. It is an Adult Swim, fake advertisement thing that is amazing. And if you ever dealt with computers in the 90s, this is exactly, maybe late 80s, I'm not sure, but this is exactly how computers worked. There's a MIDI. I don't know if anybody remembers MIDI anymore, but it was how we got our music from our computer back then when it could just beep and boop. And somebody decided, hey, maybe we can make those beeps and boops sound really, really good. And so they made this thing called General MIDI. And MIDI's still around. It's a great control protocol. You can use it for much more than just music and writing electronic music. You can use it for controlling all sorts of fun stuff in the production world, but and sequencing and that kind of thing. But for the most part, it was designed to record the notes and intonation of electronic music, starting way back. And it's a great protocol. I love it. I used to know all MIDI headers and everything, just the whole thing. But the Cinco MIDI organizer, it goes through and there's a kid and he's like, Dad, can you play this song on the computer? And he's like, oh, how am I going to do this? Because, back in the day, finding your files and it was a nightmare. So there's this little box called the Cinco MIDI organizer, and it can organize your MIDI songs by alphabet. And you just have to type in this code that you print it out on your .matrix printer and type in that code and it'll play the song. So it's a great little commercial and reminds me exactly of the hoops that we had to jump through in the early computing days. Now you just go to your phone and you're like, hey, thing in the box here, play me some music. And it plays you an actual song that's not beeps and boops, unless you like the beeps and boops music. I don't know. Is there a MIDI station on Spotify? There's gotta be.
Gotta be.
Canyon.MIDI is
There you go.
Sometimes I don't realize how old you are. So like, when you talk about these things, I'm like, I think you're such a young guy. And then you talk about something. And I'm like, man, you are like us old people. Like, yeah, I remember my first computer had 2 floppy disks, the 5 1/4, you know?
It was a 5 1/4. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember when you used to have to adjust all the jumpers just to put in a hard drive?
Yes.
You know, back,
One was
that was a chore.
correct. They were un-PC labeled master and slave. Yes, I do remember
Yes.
that.
Yep.
I don't think they can get away with that in today's culture, but I was talking to my wife the other day about needing a floppy. Well, I was wearing a shirt that had a floppy drive on it, a 3.5-inch floppy drive, which we still called a floppy drive, even though they were hard. And she was like insisting that it was a hard drive. I'm like, nope, they called them a floppy drive. And the 3.5-inch, 3.5, yeah, 5 1/4, 3.5. And my daughter was extremely confused as why I was wearing a shirt with that on there. But I was saying like, oh, that's your A drive. And I was like, to get to it, you typed A:, and hit enter and you went to your A drive. That's how you started your computer. I said, I remember when they took them out, like you didn't have them anymore. And like, how are you going to start your computer without an A drive? You can't do that. That's crazy talk. And sure enough, we all survived somehow.
And that's why your A drive's never assigned to anything in Windows, because it's reserved for a device you'll never have in your computer.
A and B, yeah. And then I was like, your C drive is always the hard drive, is always the first hard drive that you had in there. And she's like, oh, that's where those letters came from. I'm like, yep, that's where they came from. So
there you go.
A little bit of history was learned in my household. Whether anybody cares to remember it, probably not.
See, TJ doesn't care about this stuff. He's too young. Like, I loaded RetroArch on my Apple TV and paired a Bluetooth controller and was playing all my old NES games on it. And, I was so happy. And I was like, Seth would like this. TJ would be like, what the hell's this?
Yeah, luckily or unluckily, my first foray into computers was Windows ME, and by that time,
I feel bad for you.
I'm surprised you even got in technology.
Well, that's how I got into it. I fixed everybody's
fixing
stuff,
it. Yeah, just format and restart is what you had to do. Yeah.
So floppy drives weren't too prevalent. I mean, they were still around, obviously, but you guys are like the pioneers
because we listened to music like this. Classic.
Man, I'm so jealous of you guys.
You can't even tell those are beeps and bloops. Like, amazing.
Oh, you have more than 4 tracks on that one, too. No, I was in the 2-track era.
I mean, that's...
Can I listen to these on my Sonos headphones?
That's polyphonic right there. Yeah, you got plenty of voices coming out. Like, I mean, get your sound blaster out, man. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
Got to set your IRQ before you boot. It's in auto exec bat. Come on.
Oh, the command.com is missing.
Open up your config sys.
Yeah.
Don't delete those files.
Reserve extra memory.
Too good. Trip down memory lane. Like I said, I was messing around and then went down this MIDI rabbit hole and then ran across this video on YouTube. So check it out. It is just as funny. It's crazy funny. But yeah, check it out. If you have any questions, feedback, comments, picks of the week, or great ideas for a show, give us a shout. Our email address is feedback@hometech.fm, or you can visit hometech.fm/feedback and fill out the online form. You know what you can also do with the HomeTech feedback link there that we just mentioned? You can say, hey, I want some stickers, TJ, and TJ will mail them to you almost instantly. Almost
instantly. As soon as Seth does whatever he needs to do, which he's been avoiding, but we won't talk about that.
Maybe we will talk about it.
It's pretty sad because I can order stuff from Alibaba faster than I can get stickers from TJ.
Yeah, but there's not going to be import duties and stuff like that.
I don't know about those stickers.
He's like, here's 25-cent stickers. I paid $50 in import duties.
Yeah. So,
All right. Well, we're going to skip project updates tonight. We are going to jump right into this interview with Daniel Moneta over at the Matter Working Group. Great chat about the new stuff that is in Matter 1.3. And let's just get started on it. All right. And we're going to bring back to the show Daniel Moneta from the Matter Working Group. He is the chair of the Matter Marketing and Product Work Group. Daniel, thanks for coming back and chatting a little bit with us about the new updates over at Matter and what the group there is doing, and hopefully shed some light on what's new in 1.3 and kind of when we're going to see some of that move into the market.
I thought I was just here for TJ's weekly operational update on the sticker distribution system.
There is no update.
I've been honestly, that's been the most compelling storyline so far, right? Like first it was just
it's a cliffhanger.
Give us an address, we'll send you a sticker in the mail, and then there's like this whole like gray market stamp thing, and then there's this Google Map address validation system. Last time I'm waiting for you to turn. There's a
behind the scenes document sign thing that was going on. I've got to figure that one out.
Yeah. Seth still hasn't finished that. So if you haven't got your sticker yet, that's actually why. It's not me at this point. Just
a DocuSign document? Are you kidding me?
Yes. You gotta sign. Why are you giving stuff away? You're even giving away the surprise. This is not working out well.
In like 3 weeks, it's going to get handed over to an AI, and we're going to somehow have like a toaster factory situation on our hands.
We're training our AI right now with all this information we're gathering.
Great.
This podcast is all sticker talk and printer talk. So if you come for home automation, this is probably the only segment we'll have for a little while. Everything else will be printer talk.
I have like a $6,000 AWS bill for all the automation I did to make it process stickers and automate them. Oh, man. Well, maybe.
I mean, you guys should just be doing like branded router hats.
Oh, man. That is a good idea.
Yeah. Well, we definitely talked about that for sure. That's one of these days we're going to do something like that.
Well, you joke, but you know what I just bought? Sonos hats.
Sonos hats.
There is a company called Soundskins, which make these like they're more like socks, I would say, like these fabric covers for the whole Sonos ecosystem. And, it makes them feel a little bit more like living room friendly. And so I got a few for my ones.
Oh, we missed out.
Lots of different colors. I'm sure they would be happy to do branded merch if you guys give them a shout.
We might have to hit them up for that one.
Yeah, no doubt. Good call.
Yeah, honestly, the other day when I was installing some access points for a commercial building, I was like, man, Ubiquity's kind of the only one that makes like the vinyl covers for access points, because this is like an all black ceiling, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Put white access points on an all black ceiling? And basically, Ubiquity is the only one that does that. So somebody else should just come out with like the D brand of access points and routers and stuff.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to reach out to them and see if we can get some. Them to make our router hats for us. Well, lately in the news, there's been a couple of stories that crossed our desk about Matter 1.3. I think I've seen. We've seen the release come out with the like what was going to be in it, and energy management, electric vehicle charging. Microwave ovens, all sorts of new stuff to kind of entice people and manufacturers to get involved with using Matter, is what it sounds like.
Laundry dryers now, not just
big
washers.
Update.
That was a big topic last time.
That was a big topic.
We told you it was coming.
Broadly speaking, what are the big updates between Matter 1? Well, I guess we spoke last time at 1.1. What's the biggest updates between those two releases?
Oh yeah, it's been a while. Last time, definitely there was some good device category updates for sure. Particularly, I think that 1.2 was the first one that had major appliances and robot vacuums and things like that in it. So I think part of the story from last time was a lot of these devices that you're seeing are sort of foundational, right? Like we joke, but one of the reasons we did washers was, hey, this is a device type that's kind of a superset of a lot of different appliances. And so, we have to build the functionality that you then get to borrow for all the other ones, and then we'll expand on that. And so you kind of see that here. So, microwave ovens, they in of themselves are important, but they're also pretty important because they are also usually like the extractor hoods for the stovetop and oven below. So you kind of need the full stack to have a proper kitchen there. Things like cooktops, those hoods, whether individual or not, laundry dryers. So we try to really fill out the kitchen and laundry use cases there. So we think like that's pretty key. We talked about before, there's some enhancements to the Matter casting. So beyond just media support, the ability to potentially interact with devices in the home. So get notifications via the Matter casting channel on your TV. So even if, it's not, you're let's say you're not necessarily running like the smart home app on the TV, but you can still get a notification on different surfaces. So it's going to be interesting to see how people play with that. And, that can work not just on TVs, but on other potential screens and things like that as well. So I think that's pretty cool. There's some foundational work for scene support, which, as you guys know, most ecosystems have their own way of doing scenes, and they are somewhat different and not that transparent, especially between like scenes you might set up on a device app and then the scenes, how they show up in the ecosystem app. And so Matter is actually now standardizing that. So like a platform could set the scene, and the device actually knows what scene it's in and what the parameters are for that scene. So then the platform can just say, okay, activate scene X, and the devices can respond correspondingly.
So the device holds that as like a preset, and instead of like this massive amount of traffic going out to 20 devices, you do this, you do this, you do this. It's like scene 5, and it goes to scene
exactly.
5.
So that can make things feel more synchronized and sort of more elegant. It means if you set something in the device, you don't have like this sort of these separate species of scenes necessarily in the device vendor app versus the platform app. I mean, everybody has to implement this consistently, of course. And there's also, I mean, if you want to get nerdy about it, like there's this concept of like valid and invalid scenes. So the device can say like, hey, the last scene I was set to was the entertainment scene, but I got changed. And so like, I'm in an invalid scene right now. And so that helps you understand, or like it helps the platform maybe understand like, oh, something got changed. Do I need to change it back? Or, are there rules around changing it back? Or is there some external thing that got changed?
Right. I mean, that comes a lot. That comes up a lot in lighting. When you say you have a group of lights and you want to know like in general, is that group of lights on?
Right.
Or is any one of those lights in that group on? Or are they all at the very same level that the scene is supposed to be on? There's all sorts of little qualifiers you can put on that, and kind of like get down into the nitty gritty. And it gets even more complicated with like RGB lighting, because if you're not on the same exact hue and everything for that light or the color of the light, then it's considered out of bounds for that scene, and your scene gets deactivated, or like you said, invalid,
right?
Invalidated. So yeah, that's going to be fun to see how the platform owners start to implement those things, and it can be a very advanced thing to present. So I'll be curious to see how they're able to work through that.
I mean, so I've worked for 2 platform companies now, and like helping, especially, we talked about this a little last time, but users, unlike us, who don't think of their life in if this then that statements, think about automations and how they want their home to be set up is really a challenge. And there are subtle differences between things like automations or routines or scenes, and that's not always clear to explain. I know in my head, I think about like automations are typically like, here's a bunch of actions I want to be taken at a certain time. Like I want the vacuum cleaner to run when this happens, when I leave the house, kind of thing. But there's also states that I want my home to be in. Like I want my living room to be in this state at this time of day or during this kind of activity. And if you just try to do everything as an automation, it kind of doesn't work, because automations are just like a bunch of actions at one particular time. But if like maybe one of those devices didn't like missed it or got changed, and then it doesn't know what it's supposed to be in. So this concept of scenes where the device can change, and it's like, well, I'm supposed to be in scene state X, but I know that I'm not. And then there can be some logic to say, well, either come back or, oh no, the user changed you, so you're fine. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to leverage this to make things feel a little bit smarter and less disjointed for people. So yeah, I mean, that'll take some time. There's some work we also will need to do in 1.4 to build that up and make it more deployable. But as always with these things, like we're giving people the foundation so they can start building with it, and it'll show up later on as people do their experiments.
There's another similar, and maybe you mentioned it, but it's a similar enhancement, I guess, called command batching, which is similar to a scene, but kind of different. But like you can gather a bunch of commands up and save it, I guess, on a device, or save it across devices. And then when you send out that command, it will replay that, what I would call a macro. Traditionally, I would call it a macro or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Or a function.
So I think you're right. It's related. So like, for instance, with a scene, that makes it easier. So I'm not sending out a bunch of commands, because there were sort of 2 layers of problems. So one is sending a message to each device individually, but sometimes you would even be like, okay, light turned to 20%. Okay, light turned to daylight, right? And then you get like even more chaos as the home catches up. And so scenes is one part of that, But yeah, command batching is another, because it's not always necessarily part of a scene. But, I've had experiences where I have, I have an IKEA hub and it's got a bunch of Zigbee lights behind it. And if you use the IKEA app to turn on and off the lights, like they're pretty synchronized because they've done some work to do that. But if I use another ecosystem to do it, it's clearly just sending like each individual message to every single one of 100 lights and you get the popcorning. So this way, it's a way to say like, hey, go do this. Bridges are actually a pretty key use case for that, because this is often where that happens, because the sort of source of the commands doesn't own the devices directly, and so it's harder for it to do that. So this is going to help a lot with those experiences.
I see it on the CSA's website. We called it the popcorn effect when in the early Zigbee lighting days that I was dealing with, where you'd press a button and you just kind of watch the lights throughout the house turn on. And it's not all that. I mean, it's some people loved it.
I think it's cool. It feels very sci-fi. My mom is like, why is this happening?
Lights,
why is this happening?
Yeah. But some people, I mean, it's a lot more elegant if you press the button and they ramp at the same rate up and just kind of hit their target on the money when you programmed them. So, but I can see it both ways, I guess.
I'm sure someone will create an automation to simulate the popcorn effect.
Oh, 100%.
Right? It's like how electric cars now have to like pump fake engine noise into the cabin to make, or like fake the like gear change jerking to make like I'm always fascinated by like having to put back the analog stuff into it to make you feel like it's different.
Yep. I've been running across some older things. I ran across, probably one of our pick of the weeks shortly, if not this week, I'm not sure, but it's an old Adult Swim thing about MIDI music, and I'm like, oh yeah, like how can you make this even harder than it was? But it was like, it reminded me of what computing was like back in the day. It's like there were hoops we had to jump through, and if you get this new house and you just walk in and you tell it to turn on the light, that's too easy. Let's get some more hoops to jump through.
Yeah, I just had to like disassemble a MIDI file because I wanted a particular piece of it for a notification. I'm like, oh man, I remember when I used to do this all the time. Like, why? How did I have this much time?
Yeah.
I remember when I used to pay for these things.
Yep. I remember a lot about MIDI sequencing, way more than I should.
It'll be in demand again someday, Seth. Don't worry.
I'm sure. It's one of those. It's actually one of those standards that's probably will be around for a long time because it's so simple and lightweight. But
I mean, I'm still using it. I just like bought myself a portable keyboard to plug into my Quest to do like the piano VR app. And it just uses the MIDI output. Like, works perfectly. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. It works when I break it. Yeah.
I know you're going to ask for more of the laundry list. I was going to say, okay, so there's a bunch of like more nerdy stuff that we can get into. But I think the big sort of consumer facing thing is the energy and water support. And so there's support for, I'll be a little bit specific here, like water and energy device types specifically. So things like freeze detectors, rain sensors, water valves, which I mean, a valve is like the baseline for a million different types of devices that you can imagine. Mm-hmm. And so that will help with both like monitoring of water in your home and management and protection. We know that's like a huge use case for so many people, freeze detection, flood detection, etc. And that'll spawn things like irrigation control, which I know you all are a big fan of in this category now. And thank you for naming a bunch of other companies there so I can help round some up. And then there are sort of energy type devices. So things like electric vehicle chargers. That's a big category as well, particularly since it's like so big a part of your house's energy consumption or reallocation or distribution, depending on when you're charging it.
I mean, I've had to run access points down to garages to
Sure.
connect to those. I mean, they're like the range on them is like 5 feet, and for whatever reason, they just. I mean, so it'd be great if they had a Zigbee radio that can punch through a little bit further than some of the Wi-Fi, or bridge into or repeat through other devices.
Well, I think having the standard on there is going to be really great because it'll mean like you can integrate them with other systems in your house. Like, I mean, listen, it's great to be able to turn all my lights on and off when I leave the house, but you're talking about like cents worth of energy. But if you're manipulating how your car is charging, that's real dollars and that's real grid pressure. And so that's really key. And you're right. Like if they can put like a thread radio in there that can get a lot farther than your Wi-Fi is going to the garage, that's another great benefit of having Matter support.
Well, it makes the whole thing more installable, and like it's already a lift to get that charger put into your garage for most people because they don't have it in there, right? They don't have the electrical run, so they're already paying an electrician, and then they find out the Wi-Fi doesn't work. So it's always a problem.
Yeah, and honestly, just the energy monitoring in general, I think, should be included on everything at this point, just to give you an idea of what you're actually using. Some stuff I don't care about the control necessarily. I just want to be able to tell how much power it's using for either automations or just to kind of have an idea of what is efficient and not efficient and everything.
Well, so, I mean, that's one of the big other additions in Matter, which is there's now an energy reporting feature that any smart home device can use. So you can report real-time energy usage and consumption, historical. There's a variety of different measurements, and because like not every device has the ability to like directly measure its energy use, but a lot of them can estimate it. Like, okay, I know I use this much power per hour and I've been on for 3 hours. And so you can even provide estimated energy as part of the reporting. And so that's great. So exactly to your request, every device could potentially be part of an energy management, energy reporting system in your home. And so I think that's going to be a big deal going forward.
Sounds good. I see there's a bunch of debugging and developer experience improvements.
Sure.
I'd like to think we had something to do with that. They're probably well in progress by the time we spoke last.
I think it's so funny because I think we do appreciate hearing from the industry and for media and particularly from enthusiasts. It does help. Like there are things that's like, yeah, we're nerds too, and we're thinking about it and we're already talking about it. There are some stuff where it's like, hey, this keeps coming up. This is something we should work on. So that does find its way into it. But it also helps prioritize, like, the squeaky wheel and such. So if I can point to, hey, look, this is what we're hearing from the market, from the industry, from journalists, from influencers, it helps to prioritize features and requests. And we've seen that over and over again. So yes, please keep, lighting a fire under our butts about this stuff, whether it's device support or some of the nerdier stuff. But yeah, we've done a bunch of work on timestamp synchronization, so that helps to make, again, commands and automations fire more synchronously. Network commissioning, we know that setting up a device is usually one of the big failure points if there are problems, and so there's a lot more information now that the devices can both report and receive as part of commissioning, so they can say like, hey, I only support the 2.4 gigahertz band, not 5 gigahertz, and the commissioner can accommodate for that, right? That's a big challenge. What versions of various networking protocols they support. So that's going to help a lot. And even like, it sounds simple, but extended beaconing period, like where devices can just send the join beacon for longer. And so if a user went and plugged the thing in and it took them more time to sort of get the app, and because sometimes they plug it in and then they go install the app and they're like, oh, I have to register. Like by the time you're done.
Yeah. And now you've got to reset the device.
15 minutes. Yeah. So even things like that can have a huge impact on like percentage of people that have issues. So this is all coming from having devices out in the real world and hearing from people and learning.
No, that's great. That really is. I mean, anything that can get the onboarding experience better. I mean, that's generally the complaints I hear around, losing the numbers, or the numbers are too light on the product to read. They're, like the contrast.
Yes. Like Gavin, I took that note.
Oh yeah, Gavin had the same problem. Yeah.
You're welcome. I wrote the guidelines for that. So, please send me examples of challenges.
The Aquara, they're very, very, very light on the top of it. If you don't have the sticker, I had to actually pull out my magnifying app on my phone to even get that,
Yeah, that's tough. So honestly, the compromise we made, and you can see these guidelines, I think they're public, but it's like, okay, you have to give the user the standard looking code, right? Like the QR code and the little rounded corner box with the special font and the digits and the Matter logo and all that stuff. You should put it on the device, but if you cannot for size reasons, like you definitely have to have it in the packaging. But because, packaging is losable, it should also be on the device somewhere, but it is impossible to create a standard that works for every device and every like curve and industrial design. So it's kind of like please make sure this is readable to the user, but you can kind of do what you will there. So it's tough, and some people don't have like different inks to work with on their product. But
can you at least make like a contrasting standard? Like if your device is white, do not put it in like slightly less white. Like put it in like a.
We give guidance to people, but like, largely they are motivated by their support costs, right? So. So I know sometimes they're hard to read, but I've seen some really people are trying, and I've seen some really difficult spots to try and put that in, but definitely save those stickers.
You kind of get it both ways. I can see it from a product design standpoint, where you have a product, you spend all this time working on it, it's nice, and now I've got to put this QR code and these numbers on there.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see them. Like I have a little device that looks nice. I don't want to see these big numbers sticking off of it. So like, I can totally understand why they do it. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm sure somebody will be inventive with this thing and figure out in the future how to do it a little bit better, a little bit differently.
My argument is they have options. Like you could put the number easily readable on the inside of the cover if you wanted to, or something like that. But when I see them make an effort, but again, it's a very, very light gray on a white background, it's almost like they really did not want to do this. And that's, it gets me worked up.
Sometimes it makes you miss like the Z-Wave, like click 5,000 times and then hold your breath to like factory reset an object or whatever.
Yep.
Because I went through it recently with the LifeX lights. I lost the little paperwork that came with it. And of course, the QR code is at the very bottom of my landscape light. And so I have to dig it up from the yard in order to scan the QR code and like untwist the stake and everything. And it's like, I know why you didn't put it on the side or something like that. But it just, I don't know. Sometimes it's a pain point for that for sure.
Yeah, and I do see a lot of apps will if you have a device connected, like it'll give you what its code is, and so there's lots of creative ways. But yeah, everybody's trying their best.
I've even seen some third-party apps pop up that collect those for you. I know there was a gentleman that was doing it for the HomeKit side of things.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You just scan and save and say what device it is, where it is, and it's kind of another database thing to keep up with. Doesn't make the smart home inventory isn't a very sexy part of what you do, but at least it makes those issues down the road a little bit easier to overcome.
It's not Matter, but I just set up a new Railink camera, and as I was scanning the little QR code for it actually asked me if I wanted to save it to my phone. And so I was like, I'll just save it to your photo roll if you want. And I was like, heck yeah, why doesn't everything just do that?
There was a time in my life where I had many more pictures of dusty equipment and the back of TVs that I couldn't see behind than I did of my family. So
that's my case right now. So
yeah. The life of an installer.
Well, now, with AI, you'll be able to go into your Google Photos and search for what was the serial number on that thing, and hopefully we'll find it.
Oh, it definitely helped when they came out with what was the minimal thing where you took a picture of it and could
just the search,
copy the number, the Wi-Fi key off the bottom of the router. Yeah, that was great. And I suspect these are all like growing pain things. So Matter 1.3 is out, and it's got all these new improvements or features that sound great, but like how do we get these manufacturers to pick up the mantle and run with 1.3? Aquara, for example, a good example, just came out with their new hub.
Yep.
A bunch of headlines around it, Matter 1.1. And it's like, I know what happened. They were working on it a year ago, and Matter 1.1 was out, and they were like, we've got to release this product. We'll test it with 1.2 and 1.3 later. Like when, I understand as far as like a product map goes, like they got to get the product in a stable version released. How do we, as consumers, I guess, convince them to move on to these and adopt these, or give us the ability to adopt these features faster than?
Well, I mean, definitely, like as consumers, like request it, tweet at them, etc. People. I as someone who spends a lot of their time in marketing, I can tell you, like, we monitor what people's requests are, and we monitor social media, and we see what people are asking for. We also see what people are buying out in the world. So the more popular that gets, that does actually help. I think Gavin will have some words on the role of marketing as you did in the last episode in a moment. But I think it is a marketing challenge, right? Like think about a company that's just releasing its own products, even if there's developer products, right? Like we do this at Samsung, Apple, Google, everyone, right? Like They develop some new specification, some new feature, some new API. They, under strict NDA, go and find a bunch of partners that say like, hey, I want to work with you on this. Great. And then they all have their boxes and it's all in closed rooms and it's all like quiet development. They're working on it for like a year, maybe 2 years. And then we have the big on-stage event going, check out this thing we invented and check out these 3 partners that are already ready to go. But like they've been, like it's been a year since they had sort of the initial spec, because it takes time. You want to test against each other. You want to make sure there's a good user experience. It's not just about the spec. It's also about like, hey, what are you going to put in your app? What are you going to put in your app? And make sure that these things like, have a good user experience together. And so as consumers, we're like, we get cranky when a company makes an announcement about a new product and it's not even going to be like, I can only pre-order it in 2 months from now, right? Like that's kind of the window that we get angsty about. Mm-hmm. Gavin, I know you've been waiting for your 3D printer for like 2 months and, keep complaining about that. And so like, that's the I want it now window. And but with standards, you're doing it all out in the open, right? So the spec is now available and it's got this list of cool stuff, but like people still have to build those things and certify them and test them against each other and make sure that they're interoperating. And like, yes, technically I can go out and I can build support for Matter on one side and I can build a new Matter device on the other side, and they should work together, similar to like Zigbee and Z-Wave and other technologies. But especially when it's like a brand new device type and people are supporting it for the first time, if 5% of your customers have a problem, that's a lot of people. So you want to make sure that it works well. And so you're going to spend the time working with your platform partners and device partners and things and really making sure that is a good experience before releasing it. So, and then, as time goes by, it gets easier and easier to do. Once you've put out support for, 3 door locks and vacuum cleaners, the person who builds the 4th one maybe doesn't need as much ramp time to get that working. So I think that's what you're seeing. It's just that you're having visibility much earlier into the process. And I think if you look at other standards, whether it's like, I know everybody pays attention to the latest and greatest generation of USB specifications or even like Bluetooth features, right? There's time between announce and availability and hardware cycles. So I actually think the rate that people have been putting out Matter products is admirably quickly. I think what most people would like to see is the platform supporting more of the core devices and to a depth of features that sort of meet their expectations. And I think everybody's trying to do that as sort of quickly as possible. Right? It's not going to feel as laggy a couple years from now when, the 9 most popular device types are supported and, it's some longer tail ones that you're waiting on.
Are there any issues with running a Matter, let's say a Matter hub at 1.1, like I go out and get the Acquire one, it's got 1.1 on it, and I somehow come across a Matter 1.3 device or have something, like, is there any, like, I assume there's some backwards compatibility, maybe not all the features work. Is there any issues in running 2 things side by side? Do we as consumers need to even worry about that?
I mean, so if you got a hub that, let's say, doesn't support robot vacuums yet, and then you got a Matter robot vacuum,
right.
I would hope that the commissioning flow for the hub to connect that vacuum at some point would be like, so we don't support this device type yet.
Right.
Go check out the manufacturer's app and, we'll have an update soon. Because otherwise I don't know what it would do with it. Companies could potentially get crafty and try to reuse something, because
a switch to turn on and off the
device. Yeah. You're probably not going to see that on a lot of the bigger consumer platforms, because it is a potential safety issues if you don't really know what you're actuating. Sometimes. So, and there's spec compliance issues as well. So whether it will work and what the definition of work is very much up to whoever implemented that. But I mean, generally the core spec is pretty backwards and forwards compatible. But again, I do suspect you will see updates, certainly from Akara and others, and probably a higher cadence of updates going forward.
So on that same topic, what if you had one hub running 1.3 and one running 1.1? Is the device only going to work on the one that has the latest one that supports it? Or is there any confusion? Will it not be seen in all the others?
I mean, so as far as having multiple, so today, the way the architecture of Matter works is the ecosystems don't really see each other for the most part.
Okay.
And so if you have a Matter 1.3 hub and there's a light bulb on it, it's just like, cool, there's a light bulb on me. And if that same light bulb is on a Matter 1.1 hub, it's the same thing. Like there's no issue with that light bulb being on both of them at the same time. Obviously, if it's a device type that only one supports and the other doesn't, then that's a challenge. But, again, I think as over the next short amount of time, as the platforms build support for like the common device types into a reasonable depth, those situations are going to be fewer and farther between, right? They might be for like more brand new and obscure device types, right? If we do like Matter robot arms, fine, maybe no one will have support for that for a little while, but like no one's going to be worried about taking home a vacuum cleaner or a light bulb. And so I think we'll get there in pretty short order.
One of the things I've kind of noticed about a lot of the devices that have come out so far or that they're planned is that, not a lot of them are Matter over Thread. It's pretty much just Matter over Wi-Fi. Do you think we're going to reach a point where Thread is more prevalent in the Matter ecosystem? Or my thought process is that a lot of people are probably rehashing old devices at this point, or they're developing off older platforms. And so using the Wi-Fi is a lot easier than investing in a new, chip and everything else on the device. Do you think we're going to be stuck with a majority of people still using Matter over Wi-Fi in the future, or do you think that's going to shift at some point?
I mean, I definitely think we're going to continue to see both. You're right. For devices that already existed, maybe, when they're pushing a software update, it could be easier to do that. But I think there's, Thread was designed to be purpose-built for smart home, right? Low power, meshing, longer range, better battery life. And so there are a lot of devices for which that just really makes sense, particularly sensors, door locks, outdoor applications, mission critical applications that like don't depend as much on your Wi-Fi. And so I actually there are a lot of pretty popular Thread-based smart home products, and they're starting, as consumers are learning about Thread, there's also that differentiation. So I think, Gavin, you mentioned you had like the Aqara sensors and like how like crazy fast the Thread stuff was. And so we're starting to see that show up in reviews. Like that's one of the reasons people love like the Eve products, because their responsiveness. And so I do think you're going to see that more. I think like if you sort of look at what the existing pipeline is, there are more devices coming out, and a bunch were announced at CES as well. I think the other thing is, Wi-Fi infrastructure in the home is pretty, like, it's guaranteed that you have Wi-Fi in your home, right? It's not as guaranteed that you have Thread in your home today, but that's changing pretty rapidly. Like every product Samsung puts out these days has a hub in it with Thread. You're seeing it show up more in a lot of the other ecosystems devices, in some of like the network infrastructure devices, and even in Matter, we're still working on the spec for access points. And so like a smart home built for Matter access point router type device that will bring that and Thread infrastructure into the home. So I think as it becomes more ubiquitous, as the updates that actually Thread announced coming to the next version of Thread make it easier to use, make it easier to have one big happy network, make it easier for Thread devices to have internet access, you won't have those ubiquity concerns, and people will pick Thread for the use cases where it makes the most sense.
Sensors, low bandwidth devices, not cameras, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like temperature sensors and silly stuff like that, where you don't want to change the batteries all the time and doesn't need a whole lot of power.
Yeah, and honestly, like I see a lot of interest in like the lighting space as well, because you want to be able to send like quick packets. Like if you look at like the successful lighting companies, they've typically been 15.4 based, right? Like Philips is all based on Zigbee, which is sort of the same radio as Thread. IKEA as well. There are reasons for that. Like it makes a ton of sense, especially for a lot of devices you have around the home that you don't want sort of beholden to Wi-Fi. So I think, you'll see definitely a lot more of that. Yeah, not the high bandwidth devices, but I've even seen though, like a great use case where Thread is an interesting backup for a device, for two reasons. One, so you might have a high bandwidth device, but it's kind of crazy. Like even if you look at, let's say, a door lock, right? And you think about like what the most power consuming thing a door lock does. You would think it's like turning that motor, right? All the time. No, it's waking up the radio all the time and checking in and seeing if I have a message. Just over time, that consumes more. So the less power you're doing with that, the more battery life you can get. And so think about even high bandwidth devices, whether it's cameras or even other sort of computing devices that can say like, hey, while I'm kind of in sleep mode, I'll use Thread to check in and see if there's any messages for me. And if there's something interesting to do, I'll wake up my Wi-Fi radio. So that there's that use case. I've also, seen where, let's say you've got an appliance and, sometimes it's hard to get consumers to connect that appliance in the first place, but a lot of your functionality depends on it, or there's a sensor down in your basement that's pretty mission critical and you connect it over Wi-Fi. But as we talked about before, like maybe your credentials change, maybe you switch the Wi-Fi router and you forgot about that other device, you're almost guaranteed to reconnect whatever device is your Thread border router because it's probably your access point, or it's probably your TV, or it's probably, some smart home hub with a screen on it that you love that sits in your kitchen. And when you do that, your Thread devices will come back online and they can either say, hey, you need to reconnect my Wi-Fi, or might even pass the Wi-Fi credentials via Thread and come back up without you noticing. So there's a lot of use cases even for having both in a device.
Yeah, that's interesting. That'd be great to have just a little low latency messaging to wake up and go do your thing. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, think about my phone. Like, think about all the things that happen on my phone while it's asleep. Like 90% of them are just like notifications. And it's constantly waking up the cell or the Wi-Fi radio.
My phone has a Thread radio in it right now.
Yeah, maybe that's what it's for.
Comment on that one. But you can imagine there are use cases.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, and we've seen there's another, I guess competing network, so to speak, the Sidewalk network that Amazon has that has a very similar setup to that. I don't know if Ring has actually used I think they have said that they use the messaging side of that, like the little low latency. I forget what they're using. It may be like between Bluetooth or some type of Thread or Zigbee radio. I'm not sure, but they use that to kind of wake up the devices when the doorbell is pressed or something like that, rather than wake up the camera radio, record the video, send it out, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's not an atypical use case, right? Try and use a low power radio to wake up the big one. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you guys have a lot going on. What's next?
I mean, to the degree that it's public, I think we continue to work on the, core spec improvements. We're at a really interesting point with it now where there are now devices in field from a number of different vendors, big and small, large and innovative companies. There's, now devices in millions of homes, and everybody has data on their performance and where people are having difficulties. And so we're kind of at the place now where it's really interesting because we can share experience data with each other and say, hey, we're seeing users have trouble setting up devices. Are you seeing the same thing? And we can corroborate that information and then look at the spec and address it. And then that's, how the extending the beaconing period, for instance, came out. We're saying, hey, there's a lot of people that are trying to commission devices and the device just isn't broadcasting anymore. And then we have to walk them through, unplug it and plug it back in again, et cetera. So that's an easy fix. So I think we're at a point where we can, through both process as well as spec and SDK, implement some low hanging fruit improvements that are going to help a lot of users and a lot of device makers build better, higher quality, more reliable devices. But also focusing on those other fundamentals, like I talked about, making sure more homes have smart home infrastructure that is reliable, that is ready for Matter and Thread devices, that the device vendors building devices can rely on as well. So I think we're going to see more of that. And making sure that those pieces come together well. There's a bunch of new device types that we're working on. So things that you can imagine coming out of the ones we've announced, like, hey, once you have Valve support, what are the other types of devices? Working on things that are closure actuators. So think about garage doors and awnings and things like that. So we're at a cool place where we built a lot of those fundamental building blocks and now we add to it, but also working on making sure there's good broader support for the device types and the features, and defining MVP experiences on device types and trying to raise that bar across the industry.
Very cool. Gavin, do you have something?
Oh yeah. I was saving this towards the end, but I had a question.
Sure.
What's the biggest Matter setup you've run by so far in terms of number of devices?
like a particular person's home.
Yeah.
Because I was going to cheat and say like the Interop Lab from the CSA that has quite a number of devices. I've seen ones with dozens of devices. I'm sure there are people who have more.
How good is scaling with Matter? Because and where I'm trying to like coming from, right? When you're looking at Zigbee and Z-Wave, as you scale out more, you get into situations where you set a scene and, things start to slow down. Too many commands going over the network at the same time, right? And it starts to chug along and you start to see more issues as it gets bigger.
Sure.
What's the bandwidth like with Matter? Or will you see that type of thing where you could send too many commands and it floods the network, or energy monitoring devices can flood the network? And I'm specifically talking, I guess, the thread network, because Wi-Fi has much more bandwidth at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's bandwidth, but then there's just like number of messages coming across as well, and storage for that data as well. I think the first place where you're like more likely to have a bottleneck is, whatever hub you have, like, does it have resources to handle the number of devices, the number of concurrent commands, the automations, et cetera, and those range. So now, one of the nice things is the power of your hub probably scales with the size of your smart home, right? You are unlikely to run a smart home with 1,000 devices hanging off of it, off like the hub that came with your TV or a 15-year-old Google Home hub or something, right? Like, you're gonna probably have a more powerful, newer device. So just like the social economics make sense, and that the more power users are going to have the more powerful devices. In terms of like network upper limits, probably people have not hit that outside of a laboratory yet, because just the number of devices that they're putting into homes that would be all Matter, etc. But it's one of the reasons why we keep trying to make improvements on things like intermittently connected devices. So making sure like every time a battery operated device, like we're not constantly pinging devices to make sure they're awake, being able to like batch commands, being able to do scenes, so we're not sending like 5 different commands per device in a scene, and making sure that like as we move into the future, it continues to scale. I don't remember what the upper limit on like nodes in a thread network are, but I don't think you have to worry about it.
Probably not, but yeah, with the Z-Wave and Zigbee, I don't even get close to that, and you'll see like you'll hit some limits when things start happening in your home, right?
Yeah.
And I was just curious if we'll see that. I had another question too. I wanted to save this one for when we're off the air, because I think I'd get a much better answer. But let me ask it anyway.
Just ask it twice.
Any juicy stories with issues you've had with vendors? I guess working with vendors, trying to twist the standard, or do their own type of thing, or just create your life difficult for yourself.
Gavin wants the drama. He wants the drama. Yeah. Spill the beans.
I don't want to wait for the movie. I want to hear.
We all know who
now.
He's talking about, but we won't say.
I definitely can't name and shame on that one. I think one of the things that is pretty unique about Matter is, and we talked about this last time, like there's the spec and there's the SDK. So I think one of the challenges that you've seen in any standard, but certainly smart home in the past, is like you had the spec and then you go and you'd write all your code in a way that conforms to the spec. And often in that process, you're like, there's 2 ways to interpret the specification that the authors maybe didn't realize when they wrote it. And then if 2 people implement it differently, then it doesn't necessarily work together well. Or people just sort of made mistakes or different assumptions or put different limits. So one of the things we did with Matter is we have the spec, but we also have this like open source code base that you can literally like drag and drop into your device and use, and it should be certifiable. And we make sure that it is the sort of unified interpretation of the spec. And in doing the SDK, often we encounter that like, oh, hey, we need to tweak the spec, or we need to tweak the SDK to make sure that like these line up and are not ambiguously interpretable. And so that's a really good exercise. So I think for the most part, people who are using that do pretty well. We do see people modifying it because it's open source and you can do that, and you might have your own applications and your own particular circumstances. I think when people start doing that too much is where you start getting into challenges. I don't think that there are any necessarily bad actors around that I've seen, but I have seen companies where like they're really trying to make sure their devices sort of work in their existing ecosystem as well as in this new world of Matter, and are trying to make trade-offs, and like that can sometimes butt up against other things. But, one of the things we're doing is working on not just spec, but also internal process for, hey, when we see these things in the field, and these issues, how can we quickly share with each other, make sure this isn't an isolated thing, work with that device manufacturer to correct it, because everybody's motivated to make sure this stuff works. So, thankfully that's been going well. It's a lot different than some of the early smart energy days where some utility would just be I know this field is only supposed to have 120 characters, but I like 240. So deal with it, because I'm buying millions of dollars of product for you, but then it's really difficult to accommodate for everybody.
I've seen that in the Zigbee space where it's you have all these clusters you're supposed to send this command over, but you created your own custom one that's not the right bit length that causes crashing on other devices.
Yeah, there may be a few CDIA platforms that got super creative with the Zigbee spec early on, right?
Yes.
We're trying, and as always, it's the tech solution, and then the process and the social solution, and making sure that we can come together. And that's the beauty of open standards, right? If you're doing something proprietary, you're on your own to figure out why that thing you just didn't work. Here you have a community.
I think you get a great example there about the energy company that comes along and says, we're putting in 1 million orders of these a month, and now you've got to do it our way or the highway, because we're not releasing an update to our energy thing or whatever. I mean, that's kind of that bully can't really come into play here, because there's an entire community that's got to go, well, that's really not how it's going to work this time, and you're just going to be left out in the dark,
right? Or they are not certifiable,
or they don't get the logo,
and it's different sometimes in industrial space where you can kind of get away with that, but it's harder in the consumer space where you have to be able to say, hey, we're Matter compatible.
Nice.
I'm looking through the pull requests that are open right now. There's 161 open, so there's lots going on.
We're always working. Yeah,
I don't understand half of them that are in here.
Probably neither do I. and sometimes just to be fun, I walk in there with my marketing hat on and be like, guys, this is a terrible name for this, and then see what happens.
And just thinking buzzwords are hot things in the space right now.
Yeah.
You don't have to say what you're working on, because I can't think of ideas, but I'm pretty sure you guys have looked at it. But voice assistants or AI, are they being looked at in any way? Could you give us any juice?
So from the Matter standpoint, that is a couple steps removed from the interoperability spec, right? That's a really good example of a place where you want to have good standards for interop so that you're spending your time not on getting the effing light to turn on and off, but, figuring out how to get the AI to turn the light on and off and innovating in that space. So those specifically haven't intersected. I know as an industry, we're all looking at ways to see, can AI be leveraged to help make the smart home easier for people to use and more accessible to use. We started this conversation off talking about how we're all trying to make that happen and make the smart home easier. We did a lot of work with my Smart Things hat on at CES with things like Map View and calm onboarding and other ways to make it more accessible to the rest of the home. And maybe AI is a way to do that for all of us that don't know how to program automations, or can AI be the power user helping the mainstream user out like is all of our jobs right now. And so I think there's a lot of explorations there. I think where the two pieces will intersect is if there's contextual information that an AI assistant would need to know, that needs to be the devices need to know, or report, or needs to be in the spec, then I think, that's where that will come back to that kind of work.
Yeah, I think the power from AI in the home is really going to come from the sensor feedback, and having the sensor labeled correctly, just to what it does, where it is, what, the output on it's correct or not, getting that information back into a model of some type that could better make better decisions for the house or interactions with the end user, I think that's really going to be key. And the problem is, I look around my house, I've got all these lights on. I guess those in turn, they're kind of a sensor, but they're just lights. They turn on and off. But I really don't have that many sensors. I have 2 or 3 motion type sensors that are doing something around, but for temperature, there's Ecobee, some flare stuff. It's all kind of not bound together and not really going and being consumed by any one thing to figure out how my house actually operates. And until there's a standard like Matter that's gathering all that information up, it's kind of hard for any model or any type of AI type device or service to kind of look into that and see what's going on.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Like standardizing the information really helps drive innovation in that space because you can directly access it. And so like a non-AI
it's a huge lift to gather all that different product together. Like I could do it through something. I could do it through Control4, Home Assistant, whatever. But then like I've spent all my time doing that.
Right.
Like,
well, and so that's where I think like the open standards is going to be so exciting in the home. So we talked about energy management before, right? Like, so you've got all these devices, they can do energy reporting, that's great. And you've picked, your smart home tech platform of choice. Someone could come tomorrow and say like, hey, we have this really cool approach to energy management or security or healthcare or whatever. And we want to offer it to you. Like historically, the only way to do that is like they got to come in and install a gateway and a bunch of other devices, and you have to pick between, you really like the smart home experience from, company A, but you want the service from company B because maybe it's like life or energy or money, mission critical. With an open smart home with IP based with things like Matter, like you could layer that on top, right? I could have a SmartThings house, but someone could come in and have a really cool smart home service that's not, maybe Samsung doesn't offer, and they can connect to devices with my permission. And they don't have to build all that stuff from the ground up. And to your point, because the data models are the same, like they know how to do this. They don't have to like build it differently for every single one. And AI could be a great part of that as well.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's buzzword. It's the buzzword of the week,
Yeah. I mean, so I think the real question is like how the sensor data is interesting, but honestly, I think like the big thing that's missing right now from, voice assistants and voice control is like, it's not that it doesn't know what my home it's doing, is that it doesn't know what I want. I don't know what I want most of the time. Like we have all set up that automation that we thought was brilliant and that pissed us off within like 10 seconds of running it, or like 10% of the time we don't want it to fire and it's really annoying when it does. And so can an AI or am I willing to hand over whatever information or, privacy or monitoring required for it to learn what I want to happen and when, and the context around my home and who's in it. And, hopefully there's some intersection between like local AI processing and presence sensors that aren't cameras watching everything I do that's a happy middle ground to inform that.
Well, if this week tells us anything, it's never going to have Scarlett Johansson's voice. So get over that, guys. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
What a mess that is.
That was funny to watch because I watched the demos and I'm like, boy, this really sounds like the voice from her. And then he tweeted about it and I was like, oh, that's problematic.
You probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there will always be a market for the sultry assistant or whatever, like voice assistant, but like, I know by no means does she have the monopoly on that branding, but I don't know. They could have gone a different direction with it, but yeah. What turned out to really be a nice demo, like just kind of gets clouded up by all of this other drama off to the side.
I feel like they're in the like, all news is good news, core exposure kind of camp right now.
Could be true.
Yeah. I think where you get in trouble is where you like offer to do a deal with someone and then they say no and then you just like kind of do it anyways.
Find somebody else. Yeah.
But that's this is the conversation I'm having with my friends and family this week, which is like I've been using some of these like voice AI simulators and like they're very frighteningly good.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was able to train a voice that sounds, I find, indistinguishable from me on like a handful of WhatsApp voice notes. So like not even audio that I did to intentionally train it.
Wow.
And so like my family, when we all got together recently, I'm like, okay, we're going to have a secret word that if something that sounds exactly like me calls and asks you for like $10,000 in Amazon gift cards, you got to ask for the secret word. And I feel like everybody needs to have that now.
What'd you use?
The secret word is Amazon gift card.
Just make it very meta. Yeah. So on the other hand, I never have to give the slide deck ever again. I can just like dump my slide notes into the voice and see how it goes. So yeah, it's a weird world. But on the other hand, like, having of AI assistant that sounds like me or a member of my family, if that's funny to you, like Bixby can do that on the Galaxy phones. You can like train it to kind of speak with your voice. And so like, I had my girlfriend do that, and it's kind of funny. Like, she reads me the weather. So depends whether you find that like on the creepy end of the continuum or the cute end of the continuum.
It's definitely interesting. We're all kind of moving. I guess it's kind of going to bring you one of my last questions here is, what are you finding very interesting these days? Like, is it these voice models, or is it AI in general? Like, what smart home adjacent or related or even directly implemented technology are you looking at these days and finding interesting?
I mean, yeah, we talked about the AI stuff. That's going to intersect everything.
Right.
I'm really interested in, again, that move of the smart home from sort of the walled garden ecosystems to this Venn diagram where you can pick, it's more like the internet where you can pick the providers of the different pieces of value that you want, and they can, be part of your home rather than sort of having to commit to one. It's like, hey, I really like this feature of this platform, but they sort of do this other thing not as well, but I'm stuck. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's really starting to open up the home in ways that maybe people are underappreciating. I think especially as you have energy data and water data and other kinds of data, you'll start to see more and more services layered on top of that. And I think you'll start to see more openness in the smart home, more people sort of turning a smart home from like a remote control from your home into a platform that people can build on. I mean, that's something just, the plug of our own, like SmartThings has been doing for a long time, allowing third-party developers to create like cool smart home applications on top of the platform. And I think you're starting to see that more and more. Personally, like what I'm really interested in people who are, again, I'll come back to this, like just trying to make the smart home work for everybody else in the home, like the household acceptance factor. Mm-hmm. How can we create a great opportunity, a great experience for the power users, if there is one in the home, that also works for everybody else, up to and including if there isn't that person in the home. And I think people are doing some really innovative stuff in that space. All the stuff we announced at CES, like Map View, which has like a Sims-like view of your house right on your TV screen, and like even has little avatars that can help you figure out what's going wrong or like what you need to check on. People responded to that really well because for the first time, it's like, I know Gavin likes a good home assistant dashboard, but not everybody wants to view their home that way. And so I think there's going to be a lot of innovation that just like makes a smart home work for every type of user.
I am very excited about that as well. I mean, the way you the nerdy way you described it was the Venn diagram of everything kind of intersecting somehow. And I mean, you kind of like mentioned some CEDIA players with their Zigbee, like Control4 has been a Zigbee HA, I think is what they ran for decades. And I saw a post on Facebook of one of the groups I'm in from one of their product people talking about how it served us well, but we're moving away. And I asked them if they were moving to Zigbee 3, and it's like, yep, we're trying to. And, that'll be exciting because then I could take my Control4 Zigbee 3.0 devices and implement them into a home assistant project or something like that. I could go all around, but it becomes more of, like you said, picking and putting the devices that I find the most trust in. I have used the Control4 lighting product for years. It works great. And if it was paired with, I haven't used other brands, admittedly, like a couple, Lutron, I guess, but it's not a Zigbee brand. But like if I were to find a product that worked as well, I might introduce that into the system. And, it's one of those things, like as a professional integrator, you have to find something that you make money on, like first and foremost, that you can feed your kids with. Right. And so but a lot of that comes from trusting the product and the brand and everything to continue to work.
Yes.
After you walk away from the job site, like, because we don't live in those. Oh, we try not to. We don't live in those houses.
Sure.
But sometimes we are there more than we want to be.
And I think you're seeing pressure from the sort of device vendor side of stuff too, because it feels like there's this tension between like standardization and differentiation, right? And I think a lot of people are used to the older smart home world where, yes, you had these technologies where like you buy this device, it connects to someone else's hub, and then that's it. Like it's sort of behind that hub forever. And so it's that other company that has the hub that is responsible for the user interface to the user. And so like you can't really add a cool new feature if that user interface doesn't support it. And so you do sort of see a lot of like, the standard devices have become commodity devices because everyone's trying to be sort of the lowest cost supplier to the ISP or the security provider, the home automation provider that sort of makes this hub. And some companies have been able to compete on like the device itself, particularly think about like door locks where they can like build something that's beautiful and has good industrial design, it's reliable, but on the connectivity side, it's a little bit harder. I think in this new era of the smart home, you kind of get best of both worlds. You have the standard, and sure, you can connect to some other systems hub for sort of the sort of standard control, command and control, but you're on an IP network, so you can have your own app and you can have cool features that are available in your app, and maybe you can work with your partner to make that available in the ecosystem. But you're not held back from innovating and differentiating in that same way. And so I think you're seeing a lot of device makers that there's certainly companies out there that they just want to sell 10 billion commodity light bulbs, and that's fine. Great, standards are there for you, but you can go way above and beyond that with like this new open model of the smart home. And so, yes, there will be device vendor apps for the foreseeable future, but honestly, that's a good thing because I've heard you guys complain as many times about like not having a cool feature as about having like another app for that cool feature, and so this, you can have it both ways depending on which device you buy.
I've seen that a couple times recently, actually. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get in trouble, but I bought a nice Matter compatible contact or motion sensor, right? And they're like, yeah, it does motion sensing, but it also does all this other stuff. But if you want to get access to that, you need to actually buy our M3 hub, and you have access to it, right? Now, I'm not naming anybody.
Not naming any names, just model numbers and SKUs.
Yeah,
very specific model number.
That's not a trend I'm liking because my whole point of buying that Matter device was not to have to buy an M3 hub, right? But now I'm seeing that and I'm wondering, who else is going to do something like this where, it's not just an app I put on my phone, but I have to actually buy more physical hardware. I hope that's not a trend.
I mean, that's an implementation choice. I think, if the Matter spec supports, these three features, but you have a couple other cool features that are specific to like your device or ecosystem, then you can offer that through, let's say, your app. That they're offering it through their hub is an architecture choice, or maybe a need requires the hub for some reason. And I can't speak to that one specifically, but it may need that to be able to do that, the function that you need, especially if their device is maybe like a low power sleepy battery device on the other side. So I've seen that before. But yeah, I mean, that might be the case. I think for both consumers and device makers, there are choices to have. Like if you just want to go out and you want to buy like a bog standard sensor that does X, Y, and Z, and you know that the platform you have does X, Y, and Z, that's fine. But if you want to buy one that has those cool extra features, then yeah, you might want to, there might be an app that allows you to have access to those features. And the nice thing is, if those features turn out to be popular, they can build that into the standard, and platforms can support it as well. So it's the story of tech, right? Like what is differentiated today becomes table stakes tomorrow, and so you'll see that cycle.
You always make it sound better than I can make it sound. I guess that's why you're in the marketing.
Yes. Yeah, we try. I know you have some words for marketers. Listen, so like on that, like as a marketer, there's a couple problems you can have as a marketing person. You can have, hey, we've got this thing, and people say either, that sounds stupid, I don't want that thing. That's a bad problem to have. If people are like, that sounds great, but like you're not delivering fully on that thing yet, or we want more of the thing, where is the thing? That's a good problem to have, right? And so like thankfully, you guys are really noisy about the second thing, so I definitely would rather be in this camp. And I think it's, for us, it's a matter of making sure that we're learning from the field. We're fixing and updating and improving the experience for people where there's experience challenges, and just building that momentum so that there are more and more devices. But I do think there's always going to be some time differential there, and we're working on things to help shorten that up and incentivize it and raise that bar. But I think we're just in that space where the people that are most excited about it are just excited, and we're doing our best to drive it.
Well, all good stuff this time. Daniel, we really want to say thank you for coming by and chatting with us today. I mean, we're going to hit that 140 mark again. It's going to happen. So,
and we haven't even talked about cross-border duties yet. That was my other hot button issue I wanted to. Yeah,
we had all sorts of stuff lined up. Yeah. Your projects. We'll have to get to your projects next time, I guess. So.
Sure.
Project updates, yeah.
Yeah, right now it's a new air fryer and a giant Lego set that's blurred out in the background behind me.
That works. That'll keep you busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's when I automate the smoke plume underneath the rocket. That's when the smart home stuff comes in.
Well, cool, Daniel. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, taking your time to share with us the new things that are going on with Matter. We're definitely going to have you on in the future, but in between now and then, if people want to reach out and chat with you and ask questions, what's a good way to get in touch with you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm D Moneta there. I'm also around by my name on Instagram. I don't know if that's a good idea to advertise. Or you can email me at dmoneta or Daniel at wowsignalcorp.com.
Well, Daniel, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, well, that wraps up the interview here, and I don't know, good talk. I don't know. He was assigned, I guess, to talk Gavin off the ledge. Gavin's been worried about what was going on with Matter for a while, and I don't know, Gavin, you seem satisfied. Are you satisfied, Gavin?
I have to admit, Daniel is good at his job. Every time, I'm not willing to spend any more money on Matter, he convinces me otherwise somehow. I think he hypnotizes me or something like that, and then I'm ready to buy another Matter device, I'm up to 5 Matter devices in my home setup right now. So probably by next week, I'll be at 6 or 7.
Good job, yeah. He needs a pay raise is what we're trying to tell Matter.
Yes, yeah.
There's a lot going on with Matter. It sounds like they are just about around the corner though, to having like all the what you call the core devices, I guess, kind of mapped out, and then like you were saying, they can kind of build on top of those, start putting those pieces of the puzzle together, start adding on top of those things to make more complex devices, and that's how programming goes. You got to start at the bottom and work your way up. Especially this open source stuff, they can't just start with some library that's commercially available that probably has half or not all the stuff in it. They can't start from that. They've got to write it from scratch. They've got to test it. They've got to debug what's going on. They have to make it work. They're doing all this extra stuff. In fact, they're putting like example code out there that, like you said, was tested and working and certified example code that you can just drag and drop over into your project if you're a manufacturer. So that all takes time, takes effort. I'm glad to see him working on it. So I can't wait to see what comes out in 1.4. Sounds like there's going to be some interesting stuff in that too.
And Matter's I have to admit, it's come a long way since like even Matter 1.1, you know, and I don't know if that's Matter that's come a long way or it was, you know, my Home Assistant setup that's come a long way. But I remember when I first jumped on Matter, my devices were dropping off constantly. And since then, there have been changes, updates, you know, fixes, and it's actually been really reliable, running really fast. And, you know, like, that's why I said I went from one Matter device that kept dropping off, and now I have 5 that they don't drop off anymore, and they just work. So I have no complaints about it anymore. I have a few little complaints here and there, but he took note. I saw him writing some stuff down.
I think you're more worried about you know, like the fragmentation, how that's going to work. Like I think, you know, because I'm with you. You don't want to invest a lot of time and effort into something like this if it's just going to get broken off and somebody's going to run their own way with it or whatever. So, I mean, we've all been burned on that in the past. So I can totally understand why you'd be hesitant in that. But yeah, I think they've got a good path forward. I like how they're doing it all out in the open. Yeah, 1.4, he said, was later fall. So yeah. November, December, sometime in that time frame, we should be able to take a look at what's going on 1.4 and talk to them again.
Maybe they'll add support for headphones.
Oh. All right. Well, that is going to wrap up the show tonight. We do want to give everybody a big thank you to everyone who supports the show and listens, but especially those who are able to financially support the show through our Patreon page. If you don't know about the Patreon page, head on over to HomeTech.fm/support to learn how you can support HomeTech for as little as $1 a month. Any pledge over $5 a month gets you a big shout out here on the show, but every single pledge gets you a private invite to our private Slack chat. It's a little hub channel that we have in there, and you can talk with everyone else about the Sonos. I mean, it's been Sonos for a while, and 3D printers. We got to mention 3D printers.
3D printers just completely.
Oh my gosh!
And you have access to
these guys
Gavin as a service in there too, apparently for free. Solved 2 issues today. You know, woke me up from my nap just with questions. Jeez.
Latest and greatest news is in there. If you want to help out but can't support financially, totally understand. Just appreciate a 5-star review on iTunes, a positive rating in the podcast app of your choice. That's going to help other people find the show. That's going to wrap up this week. Everybody have a great weekend, and we will see you next week.
Take care.
Till next time.